Hi, everybody. For those of you who missed class on Wednesday night, this is the first of several videos where I'm going to try to bring you up to speed on some of the activities that we completed. So this first one is a model of what an active grammar or vocab lesson would look like. So I'm going to give you two of these. This first one is focused more on vocabulary instruction. The second one will be focused on prepositions. It'll be more of a grammar lesson. But I wanted to do this in class on Wednesday night to serve as a model of the expectation for you when it comes to the final week of class, when you're actually instructing the class using an active grammar lesson. So the first document that you'll be able to download is just a sample lesson plan. So it's 2 pages and it's fairly simple and straightforward. This is just the title page. I give you a little bit of a summary of what I'm going to be doing, the materials that I'm going to need, the standards, objectives, and then some considerations for the classroom. On the back side of that then is the instructional procedure. And so we'll get into all of these elements, but essentially there are 4 different pieces of this lesson. And so to begin, as students come into the classroom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them these 4 cards. And they're going to be mixed up. And this is just an engagement activity, an anticipatory set, where I'm asking them to sort them in what they perceive as the correct order of lesson design. And then we'll talk through it real quick. I'll just look at each desk and I'll say, yeah, that looks great. Or you might want to consider swapping a couple of them in or out. And then we move on into the direct instruction phase. And as we go into the direct instruction, I gave every student a copy of these closed notes. And I said that when you're designing a lesson, at least for EDU 525, there are going to be 4 major phases of your lesson. And what I've given to them through these closed notes are a description of what that phase is, but then I ask them to complete what's the phase called, and then what question does each phase ask. And so I get into that right here. Oh, this is not where I wanted to be. I think this is the wrong one. Maybe it was the right one. No, this is it. Okay. So this is my direct instruction phase then, where I go through and I actually am providing students with this information for phase 1, which is what we call the anticipatory set, phase 2, direct instruction, phase 3, the activity and or assessment, and phase 4 is the closure. Now, these were the terms that they just manipulated with that sorting activity, but now we're going to take them to a little bit deeper level as I explain to each student, first of all, what an anticipatory set is and which questions the anticipatory set asks. And so this is your engagement activity. This is your bell ringer. This is an activity that focuses student attention away from the hallway and the crazy stuff going on in their life to your classroom and the content you're going to be covering that day. So it's usually pretty short. Oftentimes it's hands-on in some way, whether it's students moving around to put things, sticky notes onto different places on the marker board. Maybe it's a journal that they're pulling out at the beginning of the class period and they're taking notes or filling out something off of the board. Maybe it's a sorting activity like the one that I've used. But that is the anticipatory set. And that is followed by the direct instruction. And this is the moment where you're actually teaching. You are instructing new vocabulary, new skills, new concepts, new knowledge and understanding to the students directly. And that's what these closed notes are for. I never want to give 6th through 12th graders direct instruction without making it explicitly clear what I'm expecting them to do, and that is to complete these closed notes. I found, early on I tried this, but I found that when you just tell students to take notes, you get varying levels of quality, and oftentimes they just don't do it. And so if I'm able to give them some sort of graphic organizer during the direct instruction, that helps to focus their attention just a little bit. And then we move into the activity or the assessment. And this allows students to practice either in small groups or guided by the teacher or independently on their own. It allows them to practice whatever skill it is that you were explaining to them in the direct instruction phase. And then if you take this one step further, the assessment is essentially the same thing, but it's done independently most times. And that's just information for you as the teacher then to gauge whether or not students are able to do what you're asking them to do. And then finally we have closure. And this is an opportunity to sort of wrap everything up, go back to the objective that you had, the original objective for your lesson, and ensure that students are able to do this before they leave your classroom. Oops, okay. So that is my direct instruction phase. And what I did after that is I gave students a sheet that I cannot find. Let me just pause this for a second. All right, I located it. I apologize. It's difficult for me to find. I had all this organized last night. Tough to find it on my computer. So as we move into the activity and assessment phase of the lesson, then what I asked students to do was to take this template of the lesson plan and to consider their own student teaching classroom, the classroom that you're currently in. And I asked them to think about some sort of vocabulary concept that they would want to instruct. Maybe it's language that students need to know in order to understand a chapter in a novel or a play. Maybe this is academic language that they need to know. These are academic terms, inference, allusion, something like that. Maybe it's academic language in that they're going to need to incorporate textual evidence, and you have to unpack what textual evidence means. But any sort of vocab type activity. And I asked students to partner up and then just fill out this template as a way to sort of practice actually going through the lesson planning process. And I gave them about 10 or 15 minutes to do that, and then they shared out with others. We had some great ideas. And then the way that we finished this all out was that I gave students, I'll find it in one of these places here, this is it. I gave students a small slip of paper. I don't see them here. But what it was the definition of one of these 4 phases of the lesson planning template. And then I asked them to take their definition and get up and walk around the classroom to where these were posted. I had anticipatory set, I had direct instruction, activity and assessment, and closure. And I asked students to stand next to essentially match their definition with the correct term. And then we go around the classroom and they're able to share out. And this is an opportunity of reviewing the terms they already know, possibly previewing new terms that are going to come up later. But my goal there was to incorporate some sort of active learning again at the end of the lesson. So I pull that lesson plan up again just to share with you, this is what I imagine your active grammar lesson plan will look like. It'll probably be 2 pages long. You don't need to give us all the details, but you're giving us a sense of what you're going to do to engage students with the anticipatory set, to instruct students through direct instruction, to allow students practice through the activity, and then to bring closure to this entire lesson. So I'll be back shortly with a grammar version of this, as well as some peer review that we did in the 6 traits of writing for our research paper.